The wave didn't just hit the boat, it erased it. Sabrina's hand slipped. For one split second, Peter saw the fear in her eyes. And then she was gone. The ocean swallowed her whole. Sabrina! He didn't think, didn't calculate, didn't remember the sharks. He jumped. The water was freezing, violent, blinding. He surfaced, choking on salt, scanning through rain and foam. There, a few yards away, she was fighting to keep her head above water. And beneath them, movement. A long shadow cutting through the dark water. Fast, intentional, coming straight toward them. Kick! Sabrina, kick! The sailboat drifted farther with every swell. A fin sliced through the surface. Too close, the engine was dead. The radio was silent, and the ocean was alive. Peter grabbed her arm. A wave tore them apart. He lunged, pulling her back toward him. The shadow passed directly under his legs, close, huge, and when something brushed against his calf, cold, smooth. Testing. Peter understood something terrifying. They weren't just drowning, they were being hunted. The sun slipped quietly into the bedroom, first brushing against the white curtains, then stretching across the hardwood floor, until it finally reached Sabrina's face. She stirred slowly, suspended between sleep and awareness, feeling the soft warmth against her skin. Peter was already awake, watching her. He loved this moment, that exact second when she opened her eyes and hadn't remembered the world yet. Sabrina blinked, adjusting to the light. "Morning," she murmured, her voice thick with sleep. Peter smiled. "Best day of the month." She blinked again, collecting her thoughts, and then she remembered. The sailboat. He nodded. Clear skies, calm water, no rain in the forecast. She turned fully toward him. "Promise me today is just us? No phones, no work. I promise." She reached up and touched his face. The day felt perfect before it had even begun. And maybe that was what made it dangerous. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen. Sabrina sliced fruit while Peter worked the skillet, scrambling eggs. The window was open, letting in the cool morning air. "You checked the fuel yesterday?" she asked casually. "Full tank." "And the radio?" "Working." She nodded. Peter had always been meticulous. She packed the cooler carefully. Sandwiches, fruit, crackers, 2 large bottles of water, sunscreen. She hesitated before adding a third bottle. "Overkill," Peter teased. "You never know." They laughed. Peter grabbed the car keys from the counter. Before stepping out, Sabrina paused at the window. The sky was impossibly blue. No clouds, no heavy wind. Too perfect. A faint chill ran down her spine. No reason, just a feeling. "You okay?" Peter asked. "Yeah, just excited." And she was. They had no idea it would be the last time for days they'd stand inside a safe house. As they locked the door behind them, a silent weather alert was being issued far offshore. Well beyond the coastline they planned to sail. They would never hear it. The marina was alive, boats rocking gently, lines creaking against docks, seagulls circling overhead. That mix of salt and gasoline always made Sabrina smile. "I love this," she said, walking beside him. Peter ran his hand along the side of the sailboat, small but sturdy. "Today is just for fun," he said. They moved methodically. Cooler secured. Life jackets within reach. Radio tested. GPS on the screen showed a clean route. Favorable wind. Stable current. Sabrina slipped off her shoes and stepped onto the deck. "Ready?" Peter untied the lines. "Always." The engine turned over smoothly, no hesitation. They eased out of the marina, blending with other boats heading toward open water. The shoreline slowly shrank behind them. Sabrina leaned against the railing, letting the wind play with her hair. She looked light, free. The ocean was calm, flat as glass. Once they reached deeper water, Peter adjusted the sail and shut off the engine, letting the wind carry them. The silence was beautiful. Just water, just wind, just them. Then Peter glanced back at the GPS. A brief flicker, a small interference on the screen. Gone too fast to worry about. He ignored it. The hours passed easily. Laughter, easy conversation. Talk about the future. Sabrina lay back on the deck, sunscreen on, eyes closed. "We're not going too far out, right?" she asked, almost drifting off. "Just a little farther. The water's perfect here." And it was. But far enough that the coastline was no longer clear, just a faint line in the distance. Peter turned the engine on briefly to reposition. A subtle sound, slightly off. He frowned, turned it off, started it again. Normal. He said nothing. Sabrina sat up. "We should do this more often." "We will." The wind shifted, subtle but different. Not alarming, just different. Peter adjusted the sail. The radio crackled briefly. He turned the dial. Silence. Probably interference. Now the ocean felt endless. The shore was barely visible. "Peter," Sabrina said softly, pointing to the water. A shadow passed beneath the boat. Fast, large. He moved to the side and leaned over. Nothing. Probably a big fish. "You saw that, right?" she insisted. "Probably nothing." He tried to sound calm, but the way the water moved afterward felt wrong. The wind began to fade, faster than it should have. The sails lost tension. The boat slowed. Peter decided to restart the engine. He turned the key. The engine coughed once, twice, stopped. He tried again. Nothing. The silence that followed was different, not peaceful, heavy. A silence that felt like it was listening back. Sabrina knew immediately. What happened? Peter kept his hand on the ignition. Tried again. A dry, final sound. Dead. The wind had nearly disappeared. The sails hung limp. The boat drifted without direction. Sabrina looked around. The horizon was water. Only water. "Peter." He took a breath. "It's just the engine. I'll fix it." He opened the compartment, checked lines, checked fuel. Everything looked normal. He tried again. Nothing. The radio crackled once more, then went completely silent. Dead. Sabrina felt her stomach tighten. "Can we get back just using the sail?" Peter looked up at the sky. There was almost no wind now. The ocean surface was turning unnaturally smooth. "If the wind comes back, yeah." But the wind didn't come back. And in that vast, unsettling silence, a fin broke the surface a few yards from the boat. Slow, deliberate. Sabrina stopped breathing. Peter froze. The fin disappeared. Another surfaced on the opposite side. The boat was still. No engine, no wind, no radio. And now, they weren't alone. Then the hull shuddered. A low impact from beneath, strong enough to vibrate the entire structure. Peter understood in that instant. This wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was the beginning of something much worse. The impact against the hull echoed like a muffled punch. Not strong enough to flip the boat, but strong enough to shatter any illusion of normal. Sabrina gripped the edge of the sailboat. "You felt that?" It wasn't a question. Peter stepped carefully to the side and looked down into the water. Nothing. Just endless blue. "Could have been a current," he said, but even to him it sounded unconvincing. Then the fin surfaced again, closer, cutting through the water with quiet precision. The boat sat completely still. No engine, no wind, no direction, and now surrounded. Sabrina took a step back. "How many do you think there are?" Peter didn't answer, because when he looked toward the other side of the boat, he saw another shadow, and another. The ocean that had felt like freedom that morning now felt territorial, unwelcoming. Something scraped the underside of the hull again, harder this time. The entire boat vibrated. Peter understood something in that moment. They weren't just being watched, they were being tested. The next few hours were nothing but waiting, and waiting at sea can be worse than action. The sun climbed mercilessly overhead. There wasn't enough wind to move the sails. The boat drifted slowly, carried by a current too subtle to track. Peter pulled apart part of the engine compartment again, searching for anything out of place. Fuel, fine, lines, intact. And yet, something was wrong. Sabrina reapplied sunscreen to her already reddening shoulders. "How long until someone notices we didn't come back?" she asked. Peter thought about it. Late afternoon. Too early for concern back at the marina. They still had water, food, energy, for now. But the heat started to settle in. The glare off the water doubled the sun's intensity. It felt like sitting inside an open oven. Sabrina took a small sip of water. "We ration," she said. Peter nodded. He turned the radio on again. Static. He adjusted the dial. Static. Nothing. The silence settled back in. Then Sabrina noticed something. The fins hadn't left. They were still there. Closer now. Almost as if the stillness of the boat invited them. And when one of the sharks rammed its body against the side, hard enough to tilt the sailboat slightly, Sabrina understood. This wasn't random, it was interest. The day dragged painfully slow. Eventually, the sun began to sink. The suffocating heat gave way to a colder wind. The ocean changed texture, less glassy, darker. Peter tried improvising a deeper inspection of the engine, but he didn't have the proper tools. "If I'd brought the bigger kit," Sabrina touched his arm, "this isn't your fault." But he felt like it was. He was the careful one, the prepared one, and now they were here, adrift. Night fell fast. No city lights, no landmarks, no reference points. The sky exploded with stars, beautiful, too beautiful for the situation. Sabrina sat closer to him. "Do you think they're still here?" He knew exactly who she meant. Sharks usually hunt more at night. She inhaled slowly. Great. Exactly what she wanted to hear. A different sound moved beneath the boat. Not a bump, not an impact. Something sliding along the hull, slower, heavier. Peter grabbed the flashlight, shined it into the dark water. Two eyes reflected back for a split second, then vanished. Sabrina stopped breathing. "They know we're here." Peter turned the flashlight off. The boat rocked gently. No strong wind, no real waves. But something was down there, and it was big. Then came a sharp cracking sound from the underside of the hull, wood under pressure. Peter felt it instantly. If that structure gave way, there would be nowhere to run. Morning brought almost no relief. They barely slept. Every muscle ached from tension. The remaining water had become too valuable to waste. Peter divided the bottle with surgical precision. Small sips, every 2 hours. Sabrina nodded. Her mouth was already dry, her tongue heavy. The wind returned, but too weak to help. The ocean was calm again, not peaceful, predatory. Peter scanned the horizon over and over. Nothing, no ships, no distant specks, nothing but blue. Sabrina stood slowly. Dizziness hit immediately. She grabbed the railing. "I'm fine," she lied. Peter noticed but didn't push. He needed her steady. A sudden disturbance in the water drew their attention. A fin surfaced close, then another and another, more than the day before. They were surrounded, and the boat remained motionless. No engine, no wind, no help. Peter grabbed one of the emergency oars and slammed it against the water. The fins scattered, but only briefly. They returned, like they were waiting for something specific to happen. Sabrina stared into the water below. "They're waiting for us to fall." Peter said nothing, because she was right. Then The radio, completely dead for hours, let out a sharp burst of static. Both of them froze. Maybe they weren't as isolated as they thought. Peter lunged for it, turned the dial. "Hello? Can anyone hear us?" Static. More static. Then a fragment of a voice. Distant. Unclear. Sabrina moved closer. "Say it again, please!" Peter adjusted the frequency. The signal faded in and out, like it was barely within range. "This is the sailboat Aurora. We're adrift. Engine failure. Approximate position." He glanced at the GPS. The screen flickered. "Coordinates unstable." He transmitted anyway. Silence. Then a faint sound and nothing. The radio died again. Sabrina sat down slowly. Did they hear us? Peter didn't know, but he needed to believe they had. The problem is, hope in the middle of the ocean can be just as cruel as despair. The sun returned with a vengeance. Their last bottle was half gone. Sabrina's headache worsened, her skin burned, her strength was fading. And then the sky shifted. A dark band forming on the horizon. Peter narrowed his eyes. The wind began to rise, not gently, too fast. The water lost its shine. Small waves began forming. Sabrina felt her stomach tighten. "Is that good or bad?" Peter answered honestly. "Depends on how big it gets." The wind intensified. The sails snapped violently. He rushed to secure them, but without an engine, without proper control, they were exposed, completely exposed. The first real wave slammed against the hull. The boat tilted. Sabrina slipped. Peter grabbed the railing. The sky darkened further. Thunder rolled in the distance, too close, too fast. Then the first violent gust tore through the mainsail, ripping part of it loose and leaving the boat partially unmanageable. Peter realized something then. They weren't just adrift anymore. They were about to face something far worse than sharks, and this time, the ocean wasn't watching. It was coming for them. The wind didn't build. It detonated. The next gust ripped what was left of the mainsail like paper. The fabric tore with a sharp, violent snap, whipping through the air before partially giving way. The boat lurched sideways. Sabrina lost her footing and dropped hard to her knees on the soaked deck. "Peter!" He was already fighting the loose lines, trying to keep the sail from shredding the rest of the rigging. The sky darkened in minutes. This wasn't sunset. It was a storm swallowing the horizon. The first truly massive wave slammed into the hull. The sailboat shot upward, too high. For one suspended second, there was nothing but sky. Then came the drop. The impact rattled the entire structure. Water crashed over the deck. Salt filled Sabrina's mouth as she gasped. "Stay low! Grab onto something!" Peter shouted over the roar of the wind. Thunder cracked. Closer now, heavier. The ocean that once invited them out was now alive, and it wasn't playing. Another wave formed ahead, larger than the rest, tall enough to erase the horizon. Sabrina saw it coming and knew. This might be the one. The wave hit like a liquid wall. The boat climbed nearly vertical. Sabrina slid, clutching at the metal railing. Peter dropped the rope and lunged toward her. Too late. The descent was brutal. The deck pitched violently. Her hand slipped, and she was gone. The sound of her body hitting the water vanished beneath the scream of the wind. "Sabrina!" Peter didn't think, didn't measure risk. He jumped. The water was freezing, violent. He surfaced immediately, scanning through foam and rain. "Sabrina!" He spotted her a few yards away, fighting to keep her head above water. He swam with everything he had left. A wave separated them. Another forced them back together. He grabbed her arm. "Hold on to me." She coughed, swallowing seawater. The boat already felt impossibly far. Then Peter saw it. Beneath them, movement, long, fast, even in the storm, even in the murky water. The silhouette was unmistakable. And when the dark shape shifted direction, straight toward them, Peter realized they weren't alone in that water. He pulled Sabrina hard. "Kick! Now!" The water resisted every movement. The boat drifted farther with each swell. The shark moved below. He felt the displacement before he saw it again. The shadow passed beneath them, too close. Peter shoved Sabrina toward the hull. "Climb! I'll push you!" She grabbed for the slick edge, slipped. He lifted her with the last of his strength. She caught the railing, pulled herself halfway up. He pushed again. She made it, collapsed onto the deck, gasping. Peter reached for the edge and felt something brush his leg. Not a bite, a touch, testing, cold, instinctive. Panic surged. He crushed it down. With one desperate heave, he hauled himself back aboard. The instant he hit the deck, the shark slammed into the hull. The impact spun the boat. Sabrina screamed. Peter dragged himself away from the edge. The storm still raged, but now there was blood mixing with the water on the deck. He looked down, a deep gash along his calf. Not torn open completely, but open enough, and bleeding, badly. Sabrina went pale. "No, no." She tore part of her shirt and pressed it against the wound. Peter clenched his jaw. "I'm okay." He wasn't, because blood in the ocean is a signal, and the ocean was full of predators. Another violent hit shook the hull, harder than any wave. Sabrina felt it in her chest. The scent of blood was spreading, and the sharks were getting bolder. The storm began to move on, but it left damage behind. The mainsail was destroyed, part of the deck was cracked, and the hull compromised. Peter noticed it first. Water was seeping in through a lower joint, not flooding yet, but steady, relentless. They started bailing with whatever they could find. Slow movements, exhausted. Sabrina trembled, whether from cold or shock, she didn't know. Peter pressed his own wound between movements. "If we don't seal it..." She didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need her to. They patched it with fabric, tape, anything that might slow the flow. It worked, barely, temporarily. The sea remained restless. The sky slowly brightened. But the wind stayed unstable, and the fins kept surfacing, more often now, closer, as if sensing weakness. 2 bottles of water were gone, swept away in the storm. Only one remained, less than half full. Sabrina closed her eyes. Fatigue was becoming dangerous. Peter cupped her face. "Look at me." She did. "We're getting out of this." She wanted to believe him, but the boat was damaged. He was injured. The water was running out, and the horizon empty. When the sky cleared enough to reveal just how far offshore they were, farther than the GPS had shown before it failed, Peter understood something chilling. The storm hadn't pushed them closer to shore. It had pushed them farther out, much farther. And the ocean returned to a strange stillness, not peace, exhaustion. The boat drifted slowly on a current neither of them could identify. Peter's face had gone pale. Even with pressure on the wound, blood loss was taking its toll. Sabrina stepped up, organized what little remained, divided the last water into 2 small portions. "Small sips? Only when we have to." He nodded. The sun returned, merciless. Their skin burned, lips cracked. Strength fading. Then Sabrina tilted her head. "Do you hear that?" Peter looked up. At first it felt like imagination, not wind, not water, different, low, distant, mechanical. She stood with effort, shielding her eyes. Far off, very far, something on the horizon. Too small to identify. The sound faded. She blinked. "I heard it. I know I did." Peter searched the distance. Nothing. Maybe dehydration. maybe cruel hope. He took her hand. Even if it wasn't real... She squeezed his fingers. I need it to be. The ocean seemed to watch in silence. The boat drifted, sharks still circling, sun relentless, water nearly gone. And now, maybe a chance, or maybe just their minds playing tricks. Then the sound came back, clearer, closer, and a tiny silhouette appeared on the horizon. Peter felt it instantly. This might be their only shot. But if it wasn't real, if it disappeared like the last glimmer of hope, they might not have the strength left to survive the disappointment. The sound came back, clearer, sharper, real. Not wind, not wood straining, an engine. Sabrina shot to her feet so fast she nearly collapsed. You hear that? You hear that? Peter braced himself against the railing, squinting past the brutal glare of sunlight reflecting off the water. There, on the horizon, a silhouette, small, moving. His heart slammed against his ribs. It's a boat! Sabrina covered her mouth, then she started waving. Hey, hey, over here! Her voice came out hoarse, weak. Peter ripped off his blood-stained shirt and swung it in wide arcs above his head. The boat wasn't coming straight at them. It was moving sideways, crossing, but close enough. Maybe close enough to see them, maybe. The engine grew louder. Sabrina started crying. They're going to see us. They're going to see us! Peter climbed onto part of the structure to gain height. The world tilted for a second, blood loss catching up. He ignored it, kept waving. The boat in the distance shifted slightly. Sabrina held her breath. It turned! It turned! The engine was unmistakable now. Not imagination, not dehydration. Salvation. Peter screamed with what little voice he had left. Over here! He grabbed the small signal mirror from the emergency kit. Flashed sunlight toward the vessel. Once, twice, 3 times. The silhouette seemed larger, closer. Sabrina's knees buckled. We made it! The boat disappeared briefly behind a swell, gone for a few seconds. Then it reappeared, farther away, not approaching, crossing, still moving. The engine sound began to fade. No, Sabrina whispered. Peter kept waving, kept shouting, kept flashing the mirror desperately. The boat didn't change course, didn't slow, didn't react. The engine grew fainter, more distant, until it was nothing but memory. And then, silence. Complete. Sabrina stood frozen, arms still raised, like her body hadn't caught up to what her heart already knew. They hadn't been seen. Peter slowly lowered his arm. The sun felt crueler than ever, the ocean wider, colder, indifferent. Sabrina sank onto the deck, staring at the empty horizon. They were so close. Peter swallowed. There are no good words for that moment. Because a false rescue is worse than silence. It gives you hope, and then it takes it back. And just as the last trace of engine noise vanished, the dead radio on the console let out a sudden burst of static. Sabrina wasn't crying anymore. She looked hollow, the kind of hollow that comes when your body decides even emotion costs too much energy. Peter grabbed the radio, tapped it, turned the dial. Static, but not dead static, alive, intermittent. He adjusted the frequency. Hello? Anyone copy? Nothing. Sabrina stared at the water. The fins were still there. Closer now, bolder, as if they could sense weakness. There was barely any water left. Peter divided what remained into 2 tiny sips. Sabrina pushed hers back toward him. You need it more. No, she insisted. He drank less than he should. The sun sat high and merciless. His head pounded, his vision blurred at the edges. Sabrina closed her eyes for a second and heard it again, the engine. But when she opened them, only ocean. She pressed her hand to her forehead. I heard it again. Peter looked at her. What? The motor? There was nothing. Dehydration was starting to play tricks. Then one of the fins surged forward, scraping violently along the side of the hull. The boat tilted hard. Reality snapped back. The next hit was stronger. The hull vibrated. Peter stood instinctively. Another impact. From the opposite side, this wasn't curiosity anymore. It was aggression. Maybe the blood was still in the water. Maybe the storm had stirred them up. Or maybe the boat was weaker than before. A third strike, lower, closer to the damaged section. Sabrina's heart raced. They're going to break through. Peter rushed to the patched area. The leak had worsened. Water pressed hard against the weakened joint. Another hit. The boat leaned again. Sabrina slipped. Peter caught her. Something scraped along the underside. Long, persistent, testing the weak point. Not now. Not now. Peter muttered. Water began seeping in faster, not flooding yet, but escalating. They started bailing again, slow, exhausted, sun burning, mouth dry, vision fading. The sharks weren't leaving. They were waiting, patient, for the boat to fail. And then the radio crackled again, but this time a voice cut through the static, clear. Both of them froze. Peter lunged for it. "Say that again, please repeat." The voice came through, broken but understandable. "Vessel adrift. Weak signal. Approximate coordinates." Sabrina's heart pounded painfully in her chest. "That's us," Peter transmitted again, repeating the coordinates he could remember. There was a delay. Static. Then, signal intermittent. "We are..." Cut. Silence. Peter hit the side of the radio. "No." "Not now." Sabrina grabbed his arm. "They know someone's out here." This was different from the first boat. This was communication, weak, unstable, but real. The problem: they didn't know if the position was accurate. The GPS was unreliable. The current had been pushing them for hours, maybe miles. The sun began to sink again. The heat still suffocating, the last of their water nearly gone. Peter scanned the horizon. No visible boat, but this time it wasn't imagination. Someone might actually be searching. Sabrina rested her head against his shoulder, weak but conscious. "If they come, promise you'll let them pull me up first." He closed his eyes. "Don't say that. Promise." He squeezed her hand. "We leave together." The sky turned orange. Beautiful. Cruel. The leak continued slowly. The sharks still circled. The radio fell silent again. But something had shifted. It wasn't just hope anymore. It was possibility. Then, the distant rumble of an engine echoed once more, from the opposite direction of the false alarm. Peter felt it instantly. This could be their last chance, because the boat was sitting lower in the water now, a few inches deeper than before, and sinking. The engine sound returned, stronger, closer, different from the false alarm. Peter lifted his head slowly, like he was afraid to scare off a miracle. "You hear that?" Sabrina was already on her feet, or trying to be. The boat tilted slightly to port, more than before. The leak wasn't slow anymore. Water poured steadily through the damaged section of the hull. The deck stayed slick, heavy. The sailboat was sitting lower in the water. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough to matter. The engine grew louder. This time it wasn't hope playing tricks. It was real. Sabrina stumbled toward the railing, ignoring the dizziness. On the horizon, a mid-sized vessel cutting through the waves at speed. Not huge, not impossibly far, but not close enough yet. Peter grabbed the signal mirror again, flashed the sun, hands shaking. "Here, over here!" His voice barely carried. The rescue boat kept coming, but not directly aligned. Water rose another inch below deck. Sabrina felt it at her feet. "Peter!" He looked. The boat was sinking. Slowly, but unmistakably. The sharks began circling again, more agitated now, closer to the surface. The water around the hull churned with fast, tight movements. They felt it, they knew the boat was failing. Then, a violent strike hit the exact weakened section of the hull, and the leak became a rupture. But the sound was different, not just impact, a crack, wood giving way, water surged in with brutal force. Sabrina screamed. Peter tried to press against the brake, useless. The flow was overwhelming. The sailboat leaned harder. The rescue engine sounded louder now, but still distant, too distant. "We're going to have to get off," Peter shouted. Sabrina looked at the water. The fins were there, more than before. "They're waiting." The boat sank another few inches. Parts of the deck were now level with the ocean. Peter grabbed 2 life vests, put hers on first, then his. The engine roared closer, but time wasn't on their side. Water flooded in without resistance now. The sailboat had minutes left. Another hit against the hull, as if the shark sensed the collapse. Sabrina grabbed Peter's arm. "If I fall, you won't." But he knew they probably would. The boat tilted sharply. One side began to disappear beneath the surface. The rescue vessel was close enough now to see figures at the rail. Close enough to see, not close enough to touch. And when the deck finally dropped out from under their feet, the ocean stopped waiting. They fell. The water swallowed them, cold, salt-heavy, violent. Peter locked onto Sabrina. "Stay with me!" The rescue boat blasted its horn. Voices shouted. Life rings hit the water, but they were yards away, yards that felt like miles. Behind them, the sailboat tilted and began to vanish. The sharks moved in immediately. The water around them shifted fast. Peter felt the displacement before he saw it. A fin sliced the surface just feet away, then another. His wound. There could still be blood in the water. He pulled Sabrina tight. "Don't let go!" She was weak, exhausted, barely holding on. The rescue boat accelerated. The engine roared. A rope flew through the air, landed too close to a dark shape moving beneath the surface. Peter swam with everything left in his body. A shadow passed directly below, too close. Something brushed his leg again, not a bite, a warning. He shoved Sabrina toward the life ring. "Grab it!" She did. Hands from the rescue boat began pulling her in. Someone shouted instructions. Peter reached for the rope. A violent splash beside him. A shark broke partially through the surface, drawn by the chaos. The rescue boat surged forward, creating turbulence. The prop wash scattered the shadows. For a moment, hands grabbed Sabrina first, hauling her up. She nearly blacked out as they lifted her over the rail. Peter was alone for 2 seconds, 2 seconds too long. A fin cut straight toward him. He dove instinctively, came up beside the rope. A hand locked onto his arm. Another grabbed his shoulder. They pulled. His body slammed against the hull before they dragged him aboard. The instant his feet cleared the water, a shark burst through the surface exactly where he'd been seconds earlier. Jaws open, water exploding around it. Then silence, just the engine, heavy breathing, and the ocean returning to its indifferent calm. As their sailboat disappeared completely beneath the surface, one of the rescue crew stared at the spot and muttered something that made Peter's stomach drop. You were way outside normal navigation routes. Sabrina lay on the deck of the rescue boat, IV line in her arm, thermal blanket wrapped around her, eyes barely open. Peter was laid down beside her. A crew member examined the cut on his leg. "You're lucky," the man said. Peter turned his head toward the ocean, where their sailboat had vanished. Nothing remained. No debris, no sign, just water, endless, indifferent. He took Sabrina's hand. She squeezed back weakly. "I thought we were..." she began. "Me too." The rescue boat changed course toward shore. The engine was the most beautiful sound Peter had ever heard, but the crewman's words echoed. way outside normal routes, too far. As if the storm hadn't just pushed them off course, but pushed them somewhere they were never meant to be. Sabrina closed her eyes, exhausted but alive. Peter let his head fall back against the deck. The sky was clear again, almost innocent, as if nothing had happened, but the ocean knew, and they knew. They had been seconds away from becoming part of it. When the coastline finally appeared on the horizon, small, solid, real, Sabrina began to cry. Not from fear, from survival. Peter looked back at the ocean one last time, vast, dangerous, indifferent, but not invincible. The boat moved steadily towards safety. They were alive, injured, dehydrated, shaken, but alive. And as the sun began to set behind them, the sea looked calm again, as if it had never tried to take them. The smell of the hospital lingered longer than it should have, even after days inside those walls, after bandages were changed, after tests were repeated, after the endless questions about coordinates and weather conditions. Peter walked slowly down the hallway, still favoring one leg. The cut on his calf was healing well, but it would leave a scar. Sabrina walked beside him, holding a thin folder with their discharge papers. They had survived. But surviving didn't mean everything was normal again. The doctor talked about severe dehydration, about how close it had been, about inches between life and death. They listened. But what echoed in their heads wasn't medical terminology. It was the sound of the hull splitting, water rushing in, fins circling, silence. Outside the hospital, the afternoon sun hit their faces. Warm, solid, safe. Sabrina closed her eyes for a moment, letting the light settle on her skin. "It feels different," she said quietly. "The sun?" Peter asked. She nodded. "It feels like I'm breathing for real for the first time." Peter squeezed her hand. "We're on solid ground." She squeezed back. But that night, when they closed their eyes in their own bed, the ocean came back. The first few weeks were too quiet. Peter would wake in the middle of the night, convinced the bedroom was tilting. Sabrina sometimes caught herself holding her breath without realizing it. The dreams were the same. Water rising, the boat disappearing. She avoided the news when it mentioned storms. He avoided driving past the marina. But slowly, the fear began to change shape. It didn't disappear. It softened. It stopped being paralyzing. It became memory. A scar. One night, sitting on the couch, Sabrina placed her hand over his. "Do you think we'll always be afraid?" Peter thought about it. "I think we'll always respect it." She took a slow breath, and for the first time, she smiled without a shadow behind it. A year can change everything, or almost everything. The house had a new sound now, not silence, crying, small, sharp, demanding. Peter paced carefully across the living room, rocking their baby in his arms. "I think he takes after you," he murmured. Sabrina laughed from the couch. "Because he complains a lot, because he's strong." The baby shifted, warm, alive, completely unaware of what his parents had faced a year earlier. On the wall hung a framed photo, not of the ocean, not of the sailboat, but of the day they came home from the hospital, exhausted, holding each other, alive. Sabrina looked down at their son. "We almost didn't get this." Peter leaned down and kissed her forehead. "But we did, and that changed everything." Are you ready?" The question hung in the air. It wasn't about the luggage or the destination. It was about moving forward. Sabrina looked out the window. The car was parked in the driveway. Trunk open, bags packed. No boat, no ocean. This time, road. Mountains in the distance. A simple trip. Somewhere inland. Peter secured the baby seat carefully, checked it once, then again, then a third time. All set. Sabrina watched him. Her heart raced for a second, not from fear, from memory. She walked to the car, placed her bag in the back seat, looked up at the sky, blue, clear, steady, no endless horizon, no water, just road. "You know what's strange," she said. "What?" "I'm not scared." Peter smiled softly. "Neither am I." She opened the passenger door, paused before getting in. "We didn't let the ocean win." He closed the trunk. "No, we didn't." The baby made a small sound in the back seat. New life. New beginning. Peter started the engine. This time, the sound didn't bring tension. It meant movement. They pulled away slowly, the house shrinking behind them, the road opening ahead. Sabrina turned slightly to look at their son. "He's going to grow up hearing this story." Peter kept his eyes on the road, but not as a story about fear. She smiled. As a story about survival. The car moved steadily down the highway, morning light stretching across the pavement. No waves, no sharks. No empty horizon, just miles of asphalt and possibility. Sabrina rested her hand over Peter's on the center console. Their baby slept in the back seat. The car carried them forward, and this time, they weren't adrift. They were going somewhere, together.